The first thing Nathan Reed registered was pain, a dull, throbbing ache that seemed to radiate from every part of his body. The second thing was warmth on either side of him, and the soft sound of breathing that wasn't his own. He forced his eyes open, his vision swimming into focus, and found himself staring at an unfamiliar ceiling made of what looked like living wood, bioluminescent patterns pulsing gently across its surface. Nathan tried to sit up and immediately regretted it as pain lanced through his ribs. A hand, cool and gentle, pressed against his chest, easing him back down. "Don't move yet," a melodious voice said. "You're still healing." Nathan turned his head and felt his breath catch. A woman sat beside him, her skin a rich orange that seemed to glow softly in the room's ambient light. Her blonde hair fell in waves past her shoulders, and her purple eyes studied him with a mixture of concern and curiosity. She was stunningly beautiful, and Nathan's confused brain took a moment to register that she definitely wasn't human. "Where am I?" he managed, his throat dry and rough. "What happened?" "You're in our home on Kelara," the woman said, reaching for a glass of water and helping him drink. "I'm Lissa. My sister Nira and I found you 3 days ago at the crash site. Your ship went down in the forest near our settlement. We pulled you from the wreckage before it exploded." Memory came flooding back. The asteroid strike that had crippled his scout ship's engines, the desperate attempt to reach an inhabited planet before life support failed completely, the screaming descent through atmosphere and the sickening impact. "My ship," Nathan said weakly. "My cargo." "Gone," a second voice said, and Nathan turned his head the other way to find another woman, nearly identical to the first, but with shorter hair and a more serious expression. "The explosion scattered debris across 1/2 kilometer. Whatever you were carrying was destroyed." "This is my sister, Nira," Lissa said. "We're healers for our community. You're very lucky we found you when we did. Your injuries were severe, broken ribs, internal bleeding, a concussion. Without immediate treatment, you wouldn't have survived the night." Nathan looked between the two sisters, seeing the same orange skin, the same purple eyes, though their expressions were distinctly different. Lissa seemed warm and open, while Nira was more guarded, more analytical. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "I owe you my life." "Yes," Nira said bluntly, "you do." "Nira," Lissa chided gently, but her sister shook her head. "He should understand the situation clearly," Nira said, meeting Nathan's gaze directly. "On Kelara, we have specific customs regarding life debts. You died, technically, your heart stopped during treatment. We brought you back using our advanced medical technology and considerable effort. By our laws and traditions, you now owe us a life debt that must be repaid." Nathan's mind raced, trying to process this through the fog of pain and medication. "What does that mean exactly? A life debt?" "It means you're bound to us until the debt is satisfied," Lissa explained, her tone apologetic. "You'll live here in our home and work to repay the value of the resources we used to save you, the medical supplies, the energy, the time. On Kelara, such resources are precious and carefully rationed. What we spent on you would normally be reserved for members of our community." "How long?" Nathan asked, dread settling in his stomach. The sisters exchanged a glance. "Based on standard calculations," Nira said, "approximately 2 years of service." 2 years. Nathan tried to sit up again, driven by panic, but Lissa's hand was there again, gentle but firm. "Rest," she said softly. "There's nothing to be done about it now. And truly, Nathan, it's not as terrible as it sounds. You'll help us with our work, gathering medicinal plants, assisting with patient care, maintaining our home and gardens. You'll be fed, clothed, given a comfortable place to sleep. Many people on Kelara would consider it a fair exchange. I don't have a choice, Nathan said, hearing the bitterness in his own voice. No, Neera agreed. You don't, but consider the alternative. You'd be dead. We're not asking for your freedom permanently, just temporary service to balance the debt. It's not slavery, it's obligation. Nathan closed his eyes, exhaustion and pain washing over him. 2 years on an alien world, bound to two women he didn't know, with no way to contact his company or explain what had happened to his ship. It was either accept these terms or, what? He had no ship, no resources, no way off this planet, and truthfully they had saved his life. Okay, he said finally, I'll honor the debt. What choice do I have? You always have a choice, Lissa said gently. You could refuse and try to make your own way on Kelara. It would be difficult. Outsiders aren't welcomed easily without sponsorship, but it would be your choice. Nathan opened his eyes to find her watching him with something that looked like sympathy. I'll stay, he said. I'll work off the debt. It's the right thing to do. Good, Neera said, standing. Then rest now. You'll need your strength. Healing work begins in 3 days once you're strong enough to move around. She left the room without another word, leaving Nathan alone with Lissa. She seems like the warm, cuddly type, Nathan muttered. Lissa laughed, the sound like wind chimes. Neera's practical, not cold. She's protecting both of us, making sure you understand the terms so there's no misunderstanding later. But she's not cruel, you'll see. She adjusted his blankets with practiced care. Sleep now. I'll bring food when you wake. The next few days passed in a blur of pain, medication, and gradual healing. Nathan learned that he was in a settlement of about 200 Kaelarans, tucked into a vast forest of massive trees that dwarfed anything on Earth. The sisters' home was built into one of these trees, rooms carved from living wood that somehow remained healthy and growing. Lissa was his primary caretaker during this time, bringing meals and checking his injuries with gentle efficiency. She told him about Kelara, the strict resource management necessary on their relatively poor planet, the communal nature of their society, the importance of the healers in maintaining their small population's health. There aren't many of us, she explained one afternoon as she changed his bandages. Maybe 1 million across the whole planet. We can't afford to be wasteful, which is why life debts exist. They ensure that resources spent are resources earned back. Seems harsh, Nathan said, watching her work. Her hands were skilled and steady, her touch careful not to cause unnecessary pain. It's survival, Lissa said simply, but it's also fair. You'll work for us, yes, but we'll care for you, teach you, include you in our community. Many people form strong bonds during debt service. Some even choose to stay after their obligation is fulfilled. You've had other debt servants? Nathan asked. 2, Lissa confirmed. One was a trader whose cargo vessel crashed near here 5 years ago. He worked for us for 18 months, then returned to his ship's company. The other was a Kaelaran from a distant settlement who needed emergency surgery. She stayed 3 years and ended up marrying into our community. Lissa's expression grew distant. She became a good friend. Nathan noticed the past tense. Became. She died last year, Lissa said quietly. Fever that we couldn't treat. It's why we're so protective of our medical resources now. Losing Tira made us realize how precious and limited they really are. I'm sorry, Nathan said, meaning it. Lissa met his eyes, and Nathan saw genuine grief there. Thank you. It's part of why Nira is so strict about the debt. She blames herself for not being able to save Tira, for not having enough supplies. She doesn't want to fail anyone else. Understanding dawned. So when you saved me, you used resources you might need for your own people. Yes, Lissa said, but we couldn't leave you to die. That's not who we are, so now you'll help us replenish what was spent. It's not perfect, but it's how we survive. When Nathan was finally strong enough to leave the bed, Nira took over his orientation. She was all business as she showed him around the settlement, introducing him to other Kaelarans who regarded him with curiosity and some suspicion. You'll work primarily with Lissa in the gardens, Nira explained, leading him through paths between the massive trees. We cultivate medicinal plants that grow best in specific conditions. It's delicate work that requires attention and care. Can you follow instructions precisely? Yes, Nathan said, slightly offended. Nira stopped and turned to face him, her purple eyes intense. I'm not trying to insult you. I'm assessing your capabilities so I know where you'll be most useful. This isn't about making you feel small, it's about efficiency. You're very direct, Nathan observed. Would you prefer I wasn't? Nira asked. Should I coddle you and pretend this is something other than a practical arrangement? Nathan found himself smiling despite the situation. No, actually, I appreciate honesty. Something shifted in Nira's expression, not quite a smile, but a slight softening. Good, then we'll get along fine, she continued walking. Lissa will handle most of your training. She's better with people. I'll manage the medical inventory and patient care. You'll see me less often, but when you do, I'll expect your best work. Understood, Nathan said. The work began the next day. Lissa woke him before dawn and led him to the gardens, a series of carefully tended plots scattered throughout the forest, each one hosting plants with specific needs for light, water, and soil. Nathan quickly learned that medicinal cultivation on Kaelara was complex and demanding. This is silver leaf, Lissa explained, showing him a plant with delicate, shimmering foliage. It only grows in partial shade and it needs exact moisture levels. Too much water and it rots. Too little and it loses its medicinal properties. You'll check these plants 3 times daily and adjust the irrigation accordingly. Nathan spent his first week learning the garden's rhythms, memorizing dozens of plant species and their requirements. It was exhausting work, made harder by his still healing body, but Lissa was a patient teacher. She worked alongside him, her hands moving with practiced confidence, and Nathan found himself watching her more often than was probably appropriate. You're staring, Lissa said one afternoon without looking up from the plant she was pruning. Nathan felt his face heat. Sorry, I was just thinking you're very good at this. I've been doing it since I was a child, Lissa said, finally meeting his eyes with an amused smile. 20 years of practice helps. She sat back on her heels. But thank you, it's nice to be appreciated. Your sister doesn't appreciate you? Nathan asked without thinking. Lissa laughed. Nira appreciates me in her way. She just doesn't express it with words, but she trusts me completely, which means more than compliments. She tilted her head, studying Nathan. You're getting stronger, the work is helping. Hurts less than it did, Nathan admitted, though I still feel like I've been hit by a shuttle. You were hit by a planet, Lissa pointed out. Give yourself credit for surviving. As weeks turned into months, Nathan settled into a routine. He worked the gardens with Lissa, learning not just the plants but the deeper philosophy of Kaelaran medicine. the belief that healing was about balance, about working with nature rather than against it. He learned their language, their customs, their ways of seeing the world, and he got to know the sisters. Lissa was exactly as she'd first appeared, warm, kind, with a gentle humor that made even difficult days bearable. She sang while she worked, taught Nathan Kalerin songs, and shared stories about her childhood growing up in the forest settlement. She was patient with his mistakes and generous with praise when he got things right. Neera remained more enigmatic. She was brilliant, a medical researcher whose work had improved survival rates across their entire region. But she was also haunted by the losses she couldn't prevent, driven by a need to be perfect that Nathan recognized because he'd felt it himself. He saw her late at night sometimes, working in her laboratory, trying new formulations or analyzing samples. Once he brought her tea and found her crying over a child patient who hadn't responded to treatment. "I'm sorry," Nathan had said awkwardly. "I didn't mean to intrude." "Then why are you here?" Neera had asked, not bothering to hide her tears. "Because you've been working for 16 hours straight and I thought you might need this." He'd set down the tea and turned to leave. "Nathan," Neera had called, "thank you for the tea and for not asking stupid questions about whether I'm okay." "You're clearly not okay," Nathan had said, "but I figure you'll talk about it if you want to." "I won't want to," Neera had said. "Then I won't ask," Nathan had promised. After that, something changed between them. Neera started involving him in her work, teaching him to prepare compounds and assist with basic medical procedures. She was demanding and precise, but Nathan discovered he enjoyed the intellectual challenge. And occasionally, Neera would make a dry observation that made Nathan laugh, revealing the sharp wit hidden beneath her serious exterior. 6 months into his service, Nathan realized something that both thrilled and terrified him. He was falling for both sisters. Not in the same way. What he felt for Lissa was warmth and comfort and joy, while what he felt for Neera was respect and fascination and the desire to make her smile. But both feelings were real, both were growing stronger, and both were completely inappropriate given his situation. He was their servant, bound by debt. Getting emotionally involved would only complicate everything. "You're brooding," Lissa observed one evening as they sat on the platform outside the sisters' home, watching Kalera's twin moons rise over the forest. "Just thinking," Nathan said. "About?" Lissa pressed gently. Nathan hesitated, then decided honesty was better than evasion. "About how different my life is now. 6 months ago, I was a scout pilot with no attachments, no real home. Now I'm here learning to grow medicinal plants and assist with surgeries, living with two brilliant women who saved my life." He glanced at her. "It's not what I expected." "Is it terrible?" Lissa asked quietly. "No," Nathan said honestly. "That's what's surprising. I thought being in debt, being obligated to serve, would feel like imprisonment, but it doesn't. It feels—" He struggled for the right word. "It feels like belonging." Lissa was quiet for a moment. "Nathan, can I tell you something?" "Of course. The life debt, yes, it's real, and yes, by our laws you're obligated to serve. But Neera and I, we don't think of you as a servant. We think of you as—" She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. "As someone important to us, someone we care about." Nathan's heart hammered. "Lissa, let me finish," she said gently. "I know this is complicated. I know our cultures are different and you have obligations. But I need you to know that what I feel for you goes beyond the debt arrangement." and I'm not alone in feeling this way. Neera, Nathan asked, surprised. She'd never admit it, Lissa said with a soft smile. She's too proud, too afraid of vulnerability. But I'm her sister, Nathan. I know her. She cares for you too in her way. Nathan's mind raced. I don't understand. How can both of you? On Kalara, it's not uncommon for sisters to share a bond mate, Lissa explained. Especially sisters like us who work so closely together, who have never found individuals who complement us both. It's not required, but it's accepted, even celebrated. You're saying you want me to? Nathan couldn't finish the sentence. I'm saying when your debt is paid, when you're free to choose your own path, we'd like you to consider staying, not as a servant, but as a partner to both of us. Lissa met his eyes. I know it's a lot to process. You don't have to answer now. But I wanted you to know that the option exists if you want it. Before Nathan could respond, Neera's voice came from the doorway. Lissa, stop putting him on the spot. She stepped onto the platform, her expression unreadable. Nathan, my sister, is too impulsive. She should have consulted me before. Before what? Nathan interrupted, finding his courage. Before telling me that the two most incredible women I've ever met might want me to stay. Before giving me hope that this life I'm building here could be permanent. He stood, facing them both. I've spent 6 months trying not to fall for you, both of you, trying to remember that I'm here because of debt, not choice. But Lissa's right, it feels like belonging, like home. And if you're offering me the chance to make it real, to build something with you after my obligation is fulfilled, then yes. My answer is yes. Neera's carefully controlled expression cracked, revealing vulnerability and hope. You're certain this isn't gratitude or obligation speaking? I'm certain, Nathan said firmly. I came here because I owed you my life, but I want to stay because you've given me something worth living for. Lissa stood and took his hand, her grip warm and sure. Neera approached more cautiously, but finally took his other hand, completing the circle. Then we have an agreement, Neera said, her voice softer than Nathan had ever heard it. 18 more months of service to fulfill the debt. And then if you still feel the same way, I will, Nathan promised. Then we'll formalize a partnership bond, Neera finished. The three of us building a life together. Teaching you properly, Lissa added with a grin. By the time your debt is paid, you'll be the best assistant healer in the settlement. Or at least the most stubborn, Neera said, and Nathan laughed at what might have been her first actual joke. The 18 months that followed were the happiest of Nathan's life. He worked alongside Lissa in the gardens, learning deeper secrets of cultivation and plant medicine. He assisted Neera in her laboratory and clinic, gaining skills he'd never imagined having. And gradually, carefully, the three of them built something more than an obligation. They built trust, respect, and love. When the final day of his debt service arrived, the settlement held a ceremony. Nathan stood before the community elders and was formally released from his obligation, declared free to choose his path. I choose to stay, he said clearly. I choose to bond with Lissa and Neera to build a life here on Kalara. The celebration that followed lasted well into the night. But Nathan's favorite moment came later, alone with his partners in the home they now shared equally. You know, he said, sitting between them just as he had on that first day when he'd opened his eyes confused and in pain, I came here in debt, and I'm leaving that debt as the richest man in the galaxy. How do you figure? Neera asked, though her eyes were warm. Because I found home, Nathan said simply. I found purpose, and I found two people who see me, challenge me, and love me. What's worth more than that? Nothing, Lissa agreed, kissing him softly. Absolutely nothing, Neera added, and for once her serious expression was transformed by a genuine smile. Nathan had crashed on an alien world, broken and alone. He'd opened his eyes between two sisters and learned he had a debt to pay. But in repaying that debt, he'd gained something immeasurably precious, a home, a purpose, and a love that transcended species, custom, and circumstance. The debt was paid, but the bonds they'd forged, those would last a lifetime.